my name is Mary Hull-Drury, and I am the Washington REALTORS Government Affairs Director, and joining me is...
I'm Bill Clarke. I'm Washington REALTORS Policy Director.
And we're here to provide you with our legislative recap. So a little bit of a history lesson. The legislative cycle is a 2-year process where in the first year, most bills to include the budget are introduced. And in the second year, there's opportunity for any bill that didn't pass the first year to pass in the second year.
That's right. And so last year, you recall, was the so-called year of housing. I think more housing bills were introduced than any time in state history, and many of them passed. That included bills allowing accessory dwelling units in all cities, the middle housing legislation allowing duplexes to sixplexes in a number of cities, reforms to SEPA, reforms to the permitting process and design review, the sale-leaseback bill that we did, and importantly, the real estate agency law bill that requires buyer agency agreements. All of those passed in the 2023 session. This year, coming into the 2024 session, a number of bills were left over that were introduced in 2023. Those included legislation on transit-oriented development, or TOD, a bill on lot splitting, and a bill allowing detached accessory dwelling units in rural areas. Those were our top 3 kind of housing bills for the 2024 session. Unfortunately, those bills, again, did not pass for a number of different reasons. On the accessory dwelling unit bill for rural areas, there's a fair amount of opposition to population growth in rural areas, right? The fundamental concept in the Growth Management Act is to funnel or force growth into urban areas. There's a lot of opposition to allowing any growth within rural areas. The lot splitting bill didn't pass, I think, over concerns about would it functionally double the density considering the middle housing bill and the ADU bill. If you have a city that allows ADUs and middle housing and then all the lots can be split, are you functionally taking on too much density within that city too soon? And then on the transit-oriented development bill was really the inability to find the balance between how much supply and zoning increases would occur within transit-oriented development station areas, and then how you would ensure that some percent of that new development would be available at an affordable level. We just couldn't figure out that balance. So I think those bills will remain around for 2025. We did pass a few modest housing bills. One was Senate Bill 6175, which provided tax incentives for the conversion of underutilized commercial buildings into residential buildings, and House Bill 1998, which allows co-housing, which means there are private sleeping areas, but a common kitchen, common bathroom, and shared facilities, so that not every unit needs a separate kitchen and a separate bathroom. So we're kind of redefining what counts as housing, what housing really is. So some modest success, not as much as 2023, but I think the legislature knows there's more work to be done on housing. We ended up shifting into a more defensive mode on a number of other bills that Mary will talk about.
Yeah. And before I get into those bills, we do oftentimes take an either offensive approach or defensive approach to these bills. And so this year arguably was more defensive. And we created a do no harm category as part of our legislative priorities when our members joined us up on the Hill earlier in January. And 2 bills I wanted to call out that we did take a defensive stance on. House Bill 2114, which was the rent control / rent stabilization bill. That particular bill did pass out of the House, but didn't make it through out of committee in the Senate. And then House Bill 2276, which is the real estate excise tax bill. That particular one originated in the House. It didn't make it out of its respective committee. That bill would have imposed an additional 1% transfer tax to any real estate transaction over $3.025 million that would have ultimately impacted new housing development and commercial construction. So 2024 is also going to be a really dynamic year for us in that it's a big election year, from presidential election, gubernatorial election, and then elections in the legislature. And we've already heard from a series of legislators who are either retiring and or they're seeking other office. A few that I wanted to call out is Majority Leader Andy Billig. He is no longer going to seek election and maintain his position in the Senate. And former Republican leader J.T. Wilcox. as well as Representative Joel Kretz. They are no longer seeking office either. And so it's going to be a lot of change for us, not only from our policy pursuits, but also with how we engage with folks as well during the legislative sessions.
Yeah, also a number of members of the Senate are running for statewide office. And so once Senate members leave the Senate, you'll have new committee chairs, you have House members running for Senate because the vacancies in the Senate provide opportunities for House members. So we'll have a lot of transition going into the 2025 session.
Yeah, a lot of change. But I mean, the lobbying team here at Washington REALTORS is ready for them and looking forward to it. So the elections in 2024 will determine most of what we do in 2025. And there's going to be a lot of change that happens, but that we are in an interim cycle. Your lobbying team is ready and available to answer any questions, and we're happy to do so because it's one of our favorite subjects.
So if you want more information about any of the bills that passed this year or last year, you can look at our website at warealtor.org or call us. And thank you for being a member of Washington REALTORS.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate it.